start Dalid on the base towards the bottom. 5 lines from the bottom. Okay. We start Hayagavai Mr. Mama. We've been discussing an alleyway, carrying in an alleyway. And in order to permit that, there needs to be a crossbeam across the entrance to the alleyway. It's called a kaira. Now, that kaira cannot be above 20 amas high, 20 cubits high. If it's above 20 cubits high, according to the sages, it's not valid. You can't carry in that alleyway. So if there is an alleyway that's like that, and it's 20 cubits high, so you want to diminish the size. Now, there's 2 ways of learning this Gemara. Most of the commentaries learn that we're talking about diminishing it from the bottom. It means we're going to add material to the bottom, to the floor, to raise the floor. There's other ways of learning it where you're actually going to add something underneath the kaira, a second kaira. There's questions on that. I think the Rif learns like that. So we're talking about we're going to raise the floor. That's how most of the commentators are learning. Kama mamayat. How much do you need to raise the floor? Gemara is a little surprised by the question. Kama mamayat. Kama detzarechla. However much you need. That means if it's 21 amas, so raise it by 1 amma. What are you saying? What's the question? You have to get it within 20 amas. So 22 amas, and you have to raise it by 2 amas. The Gemara says, no, that's not what we're asking. We know how high you need to raise it. The question is, how much into the alleyway do you need to put this? What are you going to raise? Just one little drop at the end of the mavoi, underneath the kaira, like a spot where people maybe would trip over it. That's not what the Gemara is concerned about. I'm just using that but you just make a little thing, or do you have to make like a whole platform there to be elevated so that the kaira is within 20 amas? How big does that area need to be? Let's assume that it's going to go across the whole entranceway. The question is, how much into the length of the mavoi does it need to go? So we have a machlekes between Rabbi Yosef and Abaye. Rabbi Yosef Amar Tefach, Abaye Amar Rabba. Rabbi Yosef is a teacher of Abaye. He says 1 tefach. How big was the whole kaira? I think the whole kaira is a tefach. So that's a tefach on the top, a tefach on the bottom, 1 tefach. And Abaye says it needs to be 4 tefachim on the floor. Lema b'hakam miflagi. The Gemara suggests, what's the machlekes Rabbi Yosef and Abaye? Abaye says 4 tefachim. Rabbi Yosef says 1 tefach. Says demand amar tefach. The one that says 1 tefach, that's Rabbi Yosef's opinion. He holds that you're allowed to use the area under the crossbeam. In other words, you can carry under that area. Demand amar Rabba, we're on top of Daf Hey. According to the opinion that says that it's 4 tvachim, says that you're not allowed to use the area under the crossbeam. Okay. Now, the machlekes regarding using the area under the crossbeam has to do with which edge of the crossbeam is the significant one. One opinion says it's the one closer to the Rishus Rabbim, and therefore you're allowed to use the area under the crossbeam. And the other one says, no, the edge of the crossbeam that's in the mavoi is the significant one, and you have to stop carrying right at the edge of that, at the inner edge of the crossbeam. Now, what does that have to do with us? So if you're allowed to carry under the crossbeam, so then I'm standing under the crossbeam. What am I standing on? I'm standing on a tefach wide piece of dirt, or rocks or whatever I put over there, elevation. I'm standing on that, and I'm looking up, and I say, hey, there's a mavoi, there's a kaira here. I can't step out into the Rishus Rabbim. It's telling me that this is the end of the mavoi, and I have to stop. I'm standing on it, and I know that I have to stop. But if I'm not allowed to use the area under the mavai anyway, so the tefach that's under the mavai that's elevated doesn't really help me. I can't use under there. So what do I need? I need a tefach before that, elevated. But that's not directly under it. That doesn't help. So this opinion holds that you need a makam chashuv of 4 tefachim for it to be considered that the kaira, the crossbeam, is within 20 amas. You want the makam chashuv there. Yeah. What we just did is we said that the machlekes regarding if I'm allowed to use under the crossbeam, that has to do with which edge of it is significant. The machlekes, if I need a tefach or 4 tefachim, is dependent on that machlekes. And if once I don't use the tefach underneath the kaira, then I need a makam chashav of arba. If I was able to use that tefach, I would say, okay, so you've raised the area under it, and now you don't have above 20 amas. It's within 20 amas. Once you don't use that, then you need a makam chashav of arba. Rashi points out maybe you shouldn't count with the 1 tefach, the Rashi at Tosfos. Maybe you shouldn't count the tefach that's under the kaira at all, because you can't use that. He says, no, that's not, don't say that. Tosfos must have mentioned that. Okay. It's the first possibility of what the machlekes Abai and Rabbi Yosef. The Gemara says, like, everyone holds you're allowed to carry underneath the actual beam at the entranceway. And here's the machlekes. Mar savar kaira mishum heker, mar savar kaira mishum mechitza. This is very interesting. We had this once before. Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak, if you remember, was explaining the machlekes. The Rabbanan and Rabbi Yehuda. According to the Rabbanan, he said it's mishum heker. You won't be able to see it. Remember? You won't be able to see the kaira because your eyes only lift up to 20 amas. So he says like this. Machlekes is, if it's mishum heker, and I'm allowed to use the tefach that's underneath the kaira, so I'm standing on that one elevated tefach and I'm looking up, no problem, I could see that I'm at the edge. Where do I need the heker? Only at the edge, right? When I'm deep in the mavai, so I'm not going to the Rishus Harabim. I need it right at the edge. Right at the edge, I'm allowed to be standing on that elevated spot, carrying right underneath the kaira, and I can actually see that there's a beam on top. I'm not going to go past it. The other opinion says, kaira mishum mechitza. That what does the crossbeam do? It's not just a symbolic deterrent, a sign that tells me don't cross the line. It creates this fictitious wall. The kaira is actually, it's a crossbeam on top, but there's a halachic wall, a halachic barrier that descends down and closes off the mavai because of that. Well, if it's above 20 amas, that fictitious wall only extends 20 amas. If it's above 20 amas, it doesn't work. This halachic wall only works to 20 amas. Well, So now I need the wall to close off within 20 amas. So what size area can a mechitza, kind of a fictitious mechitza work? It needs to be 4 tvachim, or else it's not considered a makim. It's not considered an area that the mechitza is closing off. So that opinion holds that I need daled tvachim. If it's a mechitza, then it has to be in closing off an area that's significant. If it's a heker, then it just has to be a sign for the person standing directly under it. Second pshat in the machlekes Abai and Rabbi Yosef. Teacher and student, who's more strict? Rabbi Yosef, Rabbi is more strict. Rabbi says it needs to be 4 tvachim. Ibai is saying another pshat, the kuli al makir mishum heker. Everyone holds that it's only it's a symbolic. It's like a sign. It's like a stop sign. It's like just a way of telling me not to cross over the line. I'm not sure what this means exactly because there's no such thing as a heker shel mata. There's no way of allowing a mavoi just because you have a pole across the floor. I think what it means is it enough that the cross beam on top, is it enough that the elevation of the floor is exactly the same size as the cross beam on top? Cross beam on top needs to be a tefach. So the elevation of the floor is also satisfactory with the tefach. Or do we say that, let's see, the Mar Savar, Amnin Heker Shel Mata Keker Shel Maila, that the recognition of where the edge of the mavi is on the bottom is the same as on the top, which is 1 tefach. Mar Savar Le'amrin Heker Shel Mata Keker Shel Maila. One says that we don't say this, and you need a makom chashuv. It's not giving me more explanation to that. Like, what's the reason for that machlekes? What does it mean? What are we doing there? Okay, we have another pshat now. Iba yisayim med kuli alma amrin heker shel mata keker shel mayla v'achav gzer shem yifches k'mifli. Okay, now we say like this. Really, you only need an elevation of 1 tefach. 1 tefach wide. How high it needs to be is dependent on how high the kair is. But the thickness, the width of the tefach. However, there's a little bit of an issue. You're going to be walking on it. And so, when you walk on it, it's going to rub it out. It's going to get lower. So do we make a gzeira that shema yifches? One opinion says no, and one opinion says yes. We make a gzeira, make a decree that maybe you're going to rub it out. And you're going to rub it out. So how wide should we make it? Because it's going to get rubbed out. So we make it 4 tvachim wide. Rashi says, why 4 tvachim? He says, well, look, we really don't have any measurement in between 1 and 4 that's significant. 3 tvachim is used for lavud. But when it comes to area, what's considered a significant area? There's a tefach, there's 4 tvachim, there's dalaramas. We're looking for a shear. We're not looking for, they said in Washington Heights, the class would start like 7:10 and 7 seconds or something. So most places they set the time 7:10 or 7:15 or something. There's like some places it's only on the hour. Some places the class could start 7:12. You know, so there's no really significant number in between 1 and 4. So it goes from 1 to 4. That's what we're saying. We want it larger than a tefach because it might get rubbed out. Okay. Tesis mentioned over here that later on the Gemara is going to have a different discussion regarding, is the heker for the people inside the mavi or is the heker for the people outside the mavi? Why don't we mention this over here, that this could have been the machlekes as well? Okay. That's the first piece over here. We're talking about raising the floor in order to have a kaira within 20 amas. The halacha, what I saw is that the halacha is like Rabbi Yosef. It says because Rabbi Yosef is a teacher of Abaya. Now, I don't understand that. I didn't look into it much, but I don't understand that because we have two contradictory rules. One is that the halacha is always like the teacher. If there's a machlekes teacher-student, the halacha is like the teacher. There's another rule that the halacha is always like the later authority. But those are contradictory rules. The later authority, the student, is later than the teacher, usually. So the way of explaining that, it says it depends when in history you're talking about. And some of the commentaries say until Abaya and Rava, we went by the earlier authority, by the teacher. And after Abaya and Rava, we go by the later authority. Well, here I have Abaya. Why are we going by the teacher? I'm not sure. Anyway, that's what it says. Okay, we're up to a new piece. It's exactly the opposite story. We didn't make a big deal about this before. We just said that the crossbeam needs to be within 20 amas. How low, how short can the walls of the mavi be and be able to carry in it, and it's considered a mavi? About, let's say, a town where everyone's short, make all the walls short and make everything short. So Stuart Little. So you have the whole area is less. All the walls of the mavi are less than 10 tefachim. How are you going to get out of the front? You're going to put a kaira over there. How are you going to walk by? You jump over it or crawl under it? There's a discussion here what we're talking about. But let's say this is the pshat. This is how they want to learn that the entire mavi is under 10 tefachim. It's not going to allow you to carry because you don't have the walls surrounding it. So what we're going to do is we're going to dig into the ground to make it deeper, to make it 10 tefachim height. So kama chagig, how deep do you have to dig? That's what the Gemara is asking. Kama chagig, how deep do you have to dig? Kama de tzarech, however deep you need it. If it was 9 tefachim, so you dig 1 tefach. If it's 8 tefachim, dig 2 tefachim. What's the shaila? No, we're not talking about how deep. We're talking about how long with it into the length of the mavi. How long do you have to dig along the length of the mavi to make it considered like the entire mavi is 10 tefachim? Now, the way the commentaries learn, I saw the going Yaakov, they learn this, that there's a concept in Masechta Shabbos that's called Chayri Rishus HaYachid, that once I have a Rishus HaYachid, which this would be a Rishus HaYachid, 10 tefachim walls, if the area is large enough, which is usually 4 tefachim by 4 tefachim and 10 tefachim walls, that's considered a Rishus HaYachid. So then anything on the side of it is considered part of the Rishus HaYachid. It's called a hole, like a hole in the wall of the Rishus HaYachid. That hole in the wall, like a crevice in the wall, that would also be part of the Rishus HaYachid. So here we're talking about that we're going to make one area of the mavi into Rishus HaYachid. Automatically the rest of the mavi, which is not the same height, is going to be just a hole in the wall of a Rishus HaYachid, and you're going to be able to carry the whole mavi. How long does that area need to be, that front area need to be, to make it a 10 tefachim high mavi? Rabbi Yosef Amar B'Dalet, Rabbi Yosef says 4. That means 4 tefachim. Last time Rabbi Yosef said a tefach. Now he says it's 4 tefachim. Abaya Amar Barba Amas. Abaya says it needs to be 4 amas. So each one is expanding his own measurement, but they still keep the same leniency or strictness. Rabbi Yosef was lenient before; he's still lenient. He's at the 4 tefachim mark. Abaya was stricter before. He said 4 tefachim. Now he says 4 amas. So what's the explanation over here? Why does one opinion hold that 4 tvachim would be good to deepen the floor of this mavoi, to create that the wall and the kaira, the front kaira should be 10 tvachim tall? Another one says, Rabbi says it needs to be 4 amas. So I would like to be able to remember this, that I was saying Abaya is like when you start counting in the Gematria, it's 1, 2, and then there's another 2 letters, so 3, 4. So he holds 4. Problem is, Rabbi Yosef is also 4 letters. It's interesting, they both hold 4. Just the question is 4 amas or 4 tvach. Okay, so Lema b'derabami v'Rabasi kamiflagi. Say that the machlekes is dependent on something that Rabami and Rabasi said. They're Talmidim of Rabbi Yochanan and it's Yisrael, Rabbi and Rabbi Yosef and Bava. The Itmar was stated like this: Mavi shenifratz mitzidei klapi reisha. This is where pictures come in handy. If you have a traditional Gemara and you look in the Rashi, there's a picture in the Rashi. I can't really show you, but there's a picture in the Rashi that has a rectangle. It's supposed to be a rectangle. The front of it has a very thin line. That's the kaira. And then you have, at least in my old Gemara, it's like a double line surrounding the 3 sides. Now, on the right, there's a break in that double line. What's happening there is that the 3 sides are trying to represent the mavoi. The 4th side in the front is the kaira. Now, on one side, on the parallel walls, on one side there's a breach in the wall. So there's going to be a little bit of an issue here, depending on how close that breach is to the kaira, to the front of it. It goes like this. You see Dr. Stein of what you're showing on your background. Yeah. Okay. If you see Dr. Stein's background, one side, don't get confused with the houses, and that's just describing to you what the chutzner is behind the mavoi. Main thing is, it looks like there's a brick wall. There's a brick wall that's complete going all the way down the side. Then the one that's supposed to be parallel, it has a big breach in it. Big break in that wall. Okay. So Ravami and Rabasi are discussing this case. They say, Im yesham pas dalid, if the front of the mavoi that's under the kaira, in other words, there's parallel walls underneath that where the kaira, the crossbeam, is extending from one to the other. So if the side that has the breach, but nevertheless the front of that wall has 4 tvachim, then matir bepirza ad eser, then that's going to be fine. The mavoi is going to be kosher, even if the pirza, even if the breach is up to 10 amas. The imlav, but if the front of it does not have an area of 4 tvachim, then pachas mishleisha mater, shleisha ena mater. I'm not sure if I said that correctly. 10 amas. It should be 10 amas. Yeah, that's amas. Jumps, it doesn't add in the what we're using here. But if that front of the kaira is not 4 tvachim, then you're very, very limited. And if the breach is less than 3 tvachim, then you have a complete wall there, and it's fine, because within 3 tvachim is considered lavad. It's considered like you have 2 parallel complete walls, and that's good. That's a mavoi, that's permitted with a kaira. But shleisha ena mater. But once there's 3 tvachim, then it's not going to be good. Why? Because you really don't have enough wall at the front of the mavoi for the kaira to permit it. How big was that wall? It's under 4 tvachim. Okay. So the Rabbi Yosef, the Gemara explains like this. The Rabbi Yosef is the Rabami. Rabbi Yosef holds like Rabami, which means that the entranceway to this mavoi, as on both sides, where as you enter into the mavoi, you walk under the kaira, on both sides it has a solid wall of 4 tvachim, that's already considered like a mavoi. That's where Rabbi Yosef gets. Where how high do I have to raise how much do I have to dig into the mavoi for it to be considered a mavoi of 10 tvachim, 4 tvachim length? So good. You see, the whole mavoi is good with 4 tvachim. However, la Abaya, let's say the Rabami, but Abaya doesn't hold of Rabami. According to Abaya, that wall would probably need to be 4 amos for it to be considered a valid mavoi. The 2 parallel walls at the entrance to the mavoi need to be at least 4 amos long. So, according to Abaya, so the Gemara says, Amalach Abaya, Abaya can tell you the following. Hasam seif mavoi hachat chilas mavoi. There's a logical distinction here. Over there, I started off with a kosher mavoi. Then the wall collapsed. One of the parallel walls collapsed in the center of the wall. Now, how close to the edge of the mavoi was it, where it collapsed? So Abaya says that if it's, Rabami says, let's stick with Rabami and Rabasi, they say that if it's within 4 tvach, if it's past 4 tvachim of the entrance of the mavoi, that means that there is still a remaining 4 tvachim wall. So then it's considered a kosher mavoi, and the breach could be up to 10 amos, which is enough of a doorway. Okay. But Abaya holds that a mavoi needs to be 4 amos. Why are you saying that it's only 4 tvachim? Abaya will tell you like this. When you're starting a mavoi, when you're trying to create a new mavoi, then you need an area of 4 amos. But once you have a mavoi and you're trying to destroy it, right, halachically trying to, logically trying to destroy it, so then it remains a mavoi unless there's not even 4 tvachim. Abaya says, really, I could hold like Rabami. Don't throw Rabami to me and tell me that, Abaya, what are you doing? Rabami says it's only 4 tvachim. I'm going to respond to you. That's what Abaya could respond. He says that that's because the mavoi already existed beforehand and you're trying to take it away. Like, an example of this is making a utensil. It's not considered a utensil until it's ready. But after it's ready, then when it breaks, it's still considered a utensil until it becomes absolutely useless. So he's saying here, to make it into a mavoi, it has to be mamish 4 amos. But once it's a mavoi and you're trying to make it not a mavoi, then 4 tvachim is still satisfactory. Iyaka arba amos in Eily, that's by the tchilas mavoi. Hasam seif mavoi tchilas mavoi amos in Eily. Okay. Amar Rabbi mina minala. Rabbi says, how do you know that you need 4 amos for a mavoi to be a mavoi? In other words, what Rabbi is going to require me to do is if I have a very low mavoi alleyway and I want to dig into the ground, and you have to dig the length of 4 amos along into the length of the mavoi, however deep I need for it to be the height of 10 tvachim. Says, how do you know that? It says, the Tanya Abba Brisa. Ein mavoi nite belecha v'kerech shiubat l'chatzeres p'suchim l'seicha. A mavoi only works if there's courtyards opening up into the mavoi, and those courtyards need houses. Okay, the houses part is not significant to us. What's significant to us is the courtyard. Now, I need a doorway into the mavoi. So Abaya is saying like this. According to you, Rabbi Yosef, you claim that a mavoi, an alleyway, is already considered an alleyway if it's 4 tvachim long. It's 4 tvachim long. How do you get a doorway into a 4 Tvachim wall? There's no wall. The whole Mavi is 4 Tvachim, and we know that a doorway is also 4 Tvachim. So it's got to be that a Mavi is 4 Amos. If the whole Mavi is only 4 Tvachim, how do you have an entranceway from the courtyard into the Mavi? You basically have no walls. Gemara says, says you're ignoring the back wall. We didn't say how wide it is. We're only talking about how deep it is. The back wall maybe is very large. You have doorways, 2 courtyards opening up into there. It's perfect. Nachman says that the Mavi needs to be a rectangle, an alleyway. That means it needs to be, the back wall needs to be shorter than the side walls. The side walls have the length, and the back wall is narrower. So what are we saying over here? That if the side walls need to be 4 Tvachim, then the back wall is even shorter than them. You can't get a doorway into it. It's a big problem. Baya says, therefore, it's a good proof that a Mavi needs to be 4 Amos. Rabbi Yosef, what does Rabbi Yosef do? He says 4 Tvachim. How does he arrange doorways into walls that are smaller than doorways? It says like this, the Pasach Le'Bekeren Zavis says that you make it as a diagonal. That means the entranceway to the Mavi has a 1 tefach. So I start 1 tefach in. Then I make a diagonal doorway from that first tefach to the back wall. If you look in the Rashi on the bottom picture, well, actually there's 2 bottom pictures. One of the bottom pictures looks like a checkerboard. Now, what it's showing you over there is 4 Tvachim. It's larger than a tic-tac-toe. So there's 4 Tvachim by 4 Tvachim. What it's showing you is, you see the diagonal line that's going from 1 tefach to the second column. It's going to, right? So that's telling you what the wall looks like. So you just take off that corner, take off the whole back corner, and that would be the doorway. So the back wall would have a wall of 2 Tvachim, and the entranceway would have a 1 tefach wall there. Now, Tosfos has a little bit of an issue with this. You notice there's a picture in Tosfos as well. Tosfos says that what Rashi is trying to do is he's trying to get a 4 Tvachim entranceway with a 3 tefach wall on a diagonal of 1 tefach. Now, what's bothering Tosfos is like this. It says that according to the Gemara, every diagonal line, if it's a square, is 2/5 longer than the straight line. Now, if I would have a diagonal on a 4 by 4, and it went straight across so each tefach would be 2/5 more. So I need a doorway of 4 tefachim. So already by my 3rd tefach, I already have reached a line of 4 tefachim. 2/5 plus 2/5. That's already. Then I would have by my 3rd tefach, I'm already 6/5. I would already have 4 tefachim there. I already have gained an extra tefach. But when your diagonal is only 1 tefach along 3 tefachim, in other words, you're only crossing over 1 tefach. So you're getting only 2/5 at the end of 1 tefach. You really don't have a wall of 4 tefachim. That's what Tosfos is doing in there. I don't know if you see. He's trying to show you in the picture a diagonal of 1 tefach, versus a diagonal that's going along 3 tvachim. Now, there's 2 pictures there. I don't know, one's from the Marshal, one's from the Marshal.
Who could enter through a doorway of 1 tefach? Are we talking about midgets?
No. The doorway is 4 tvachim. Let's do like this. Can I share
and 10 tvachim high? I mean, why is aren't we talking about regular people?
Right. The 10 tvachim is going to be a tough one. You're going to walk through. There's a corridor there of 10 tvachim. That's going to be a tough one.
What is it? Crawling under?
Either crawling under or going over. I don't know. I mean, a sukkah is good enough if it's 10 tvachim. So, but over there you're sitting in it, right? So it's usable. It's usable. But a doorway needs to be 4 tvachim. So the entrance to this mavoi, okay, let's say it's 4 tvachim. But you need also entrances of courtyards going into a mavoi. So if the whole mavoi is 4 tvachim, and you have a doorway of 4 tvachim, you have chatzeros that are going into, how do you have it? So Rabbi Yosef would say that you have this diagonal. We use, normally the way you measure the diagonal is the square root, how does it do it? A squared plus B squared is C squared, is that how it goes? The hypotenuse is the, you can tell the length of the hypotenuse by adding together the square of both sides and then dividing it. The same thing, it's very close to the 2/5 that we're talking about, 2/5 of the. Okay. So now we have a problem because you can't use the back wall. You can't use the side walls. And Rabbi Yosef gives an answer that you can do this diagonal. Abaya doesn't hold of that. So Abaya says it must be that the mavi is the length of 4 amas. Amar Abaya gives another source. How do I know that a mavi needs to be a length of 4 amas? Amar Rami bar Chama Amar Rav Huna lechi habaylet midayfne shel mavi pachas mi4 amas nida mishum lechi ve'ein tzarich lechi achel atira. Dalet amas nida mishum mavi v'tzarich lechi achel atira. What's happening here is that if I have at the entranceway to the mavi, in the diagrams that we've been looking at, and the entranceway is just totally open. Now we're saying that the entranceway has a wall, but that wall wasn't made there specifically to be a lechi. A lechi is a post that's like half a mechitza that allows you to carry in that mavi. Here we just have a wall that's coming out, and the question is, does that satisfy the requirements of a lechi? Does that wall satisfy the requirements of a lechi? So if it's less than 4 amas, then that wall, that protruding wall at the entranceway, will satisfy the requirements of a lechi. But if it's more than 4 amas, then that's considered like there's one closed off mavai, and then there's a second mavai on the side of it that doesn't have any lechi there. Abai is going to say that you see how big a mavai is? It's 4 amas. Because that tells me that that's already a makam chashav, that's already a mavi that's closed. Now I have another one. So, what all Abai is showing us is that a dalet amas is considered the full rishus of a mavi. Rav Yosef lafukim mitaris lechi adik arba amas. Mehavi mavi afilu bar betvachim nami avi mavi. Rav Yosef uses the exact same logic that Abaye used before. He uses it back on Abaye. He says, what are you trying to do over here? You're trying to tell me that it's not considered a lechi. Over there, you need 4 amas to take it out from being a lechi, being a post. But if you're trying to create what a mavi really is, you only need 4 tvachim. And the length of a mavi only needs to be 4 tvachim. Over here, we turned it on the side. We're not dealing now with the length of it. We're dealing with the width of it now. But it doesn't matter. What Abai is saying is that a mavi needs 4 amas to be considered a rishus, to be considered a mavi. The picture that Dr. Stein has shows us that. I can't read the words, but you see there's a brick wall. You see the houses on the side, the courtyards. The entranceway has a partial wall in the entranceway. So what we're saying is that if that partial wall is already 4 amas, then that's considered a wall. It's not considered a post. And you need to add another post to make it permissible. But if it's under 4 amas,
it says Lechi haboileit mitzvah shel mavoi.
Lechi haboileit. Lechi haboileit. Midoifnei shel mavoi. It's protruding. Oh, Abi, you may be referring. Are you looking at where it's sticking out in the center of a wall? Yeah, there is another opinion here that learns this Gemara like this. Maybe there's sophisticated pictures in the back. It could be, I didn't notice, but it could be that we're talking about in the length of the mavi, there's one protrusion sticking out in the middle, which is going to divide my mavi into 2 mavis. That's another way of learning this Gemara. The Rishonim learn this differently.
Rabbi?
Yeah.
This kind of reminds me of the 4th wall of a sukkah. But in the sukkah, you actually have the sukkah. So this would be, but it just seems to be some
It's very interesting because there are comparisons. I mean, the Masechta started off comparing the Mavi to the Sukkah. And both of them only have 3 walls. Halachically, it's just 3 walls. And we just had today where there's 2.5 walls. There's 2 walls, and then the 3rd wall has a breach. It looked like a letter Hey, right? So there are these comparisons going on. Okay, Abai is proving to us that there's a mavi needs to be 4 amas. Rabbi Yosef responds that to create a mavi originally, you only need 4 tvachim. And so therefore, we're discussing the digging into the ground to create the area, the height of 10 tvachim. That would only need to be a width of 4 tvachim according to Rabbi Yosef. Gufa, Gemara goes back to examine the statement of Rami Bar Chama. Rami Bar Chama, it's interesting that Rami Bar Chama is a contemporary of Abaya. Abaya is using him as a support. He's younger than Rabbi Yosef. Rabbi Yosef is answering up to Rami Bar Chama a statement. It must be that they knew that this was a statement that was just being quoted by him, but it was an accepted statement. But I am saying on the side that it's Rami Bar Abba, which is an Amira that I'm not familiar with. Okay, Gufa, Amar Rami Bar Chama, Amar Rav Huna. It says the name of Rav Huna. That resolves everything. He says the name of Rav Huna. Okay, I missed that. He says in the name of Rav Huna. It says, Lechi abaylet midayfnei shel mavoi. A lechi that's protruding from the wall of the mavoi. So we were learning that it's protruding at the entranceway to the mavoi. All right. Here's another way of learning this, that it's protruding in the center of the mavoi, but let's learn it. It's protruding at the entrance to the mavoi. So if it's pachas mi'arba amas mishum lechi, we're on the top of 5b. If it's less than 4 amas, it's considered a lechi. And you do not need another post to permit it because you already have 3 walls plus a post. That's good. The post satisfies it makes it, you're allowed to carry in them. Dalit amas. But once that lechi is 4 amas, nidin mishum mavei v'tzorech lechi achalat, then it's not considered a post anymore. It needs to be specifically small to permit you. If once it's large, then you need another post. Once it's 4 amas. Where do you put the new post that you need? So if you look in the picture that's behind the background of Dr. Stein, you have over there a wall of 4 amas at the entranceway, and then you have a big gap, another wall, an opening. So where do I put the post over there? Which side? What's going to be? The Gemara says like this: if you put it along the wall. Okay, so I have a wall of 4 amas that's blocking the entranceway, and now I extend it a little bit by another little bit. What did you do? You extended the wall. The wall didn't work as a lechi. You made it a little longer, now it's supposed to work. If it was shorter, it would have worked. Now that it's 4 amas, it doesn't work. The lengthening it shouldn't help. Amarav Papa the Mukila Lidachtisar. Papa says you put it on the opposite side. You put it on the wall. Put it on the wall that's going straight to the end of the mavik. Put it along there. So at the entrance to that wall, you have put a lechi. Rafuna Breder Rabbi Yeshua Amar Afil came the Mukila Bahadei. Rafuna Breder Rabbi Yeshua, who's a contemporary of Rav Papa. They're students of Abai and Rava. They say here, Rafuna Breder Rabbi Yeshua says that you could put it on either side of the mavik. You can put it on the wall that's blocking the entranceway. But how do you do it? You have to do it in a specific way. The matfi bay or the mifzer bay. Either you make it wider or higher, or you make it shorter or narrower. It has to be recognizable that it's not just an extended wall. Because the lechi needs to look different. So in Dr. Stein's picture, you notice that the entranceway is blocked by a wall. And then attached to that wall, at the end of that wall, is a little post that's a little bit higher than the rest of the wall. That would be the lechi. Very good. Now, Ravuna Breder says it could be shorter as well. It could be narrower, it could be wider, however you want. But it's just recognizable that it's not. Okay. Amar Ravuna Breder Rav Yeshua lo yamar nala b'mavi shmeina. Aval b'mavi shiva nita ba'im edruma ala paretz. How wide is the entranceway? We didn't discuss this. How wide is the entranceway to this mavai that has a wall of 4 amas blocking the entranceway? And then you're telling me that you need another lechi to block it. It says if the entire entranceway was only 7 amas, says then you don't need anything because the majority of the entranceway is closed off. It's called Aimid Meruba ala Paretz. There's more closed area than open area, and it's perfectly fine. However, what are we talking about when you need an extra lechi? That's because the entranceway was 8 amas. That means that when you look at this entranceway, it's half and half. It needs to be more. Not so clear what half and half is, but okay. He says v'kal v'chaymer. He has this from a kal v'chaymer. How does he know that Aimid Meruba ala Paretz is going to work? So kal v'chaymer goes like this: kal v'chaymer mechatzer, kal v'chaymer from a courtyard. Now, what's easier to close off? A courtyard to block the entranceway, to make it permissible to carry it. A courtyard or a mavai? So he's going to tell us like this, that it's easier to close off a mavai. It's more difficult to close off a courtyard. You need more halachas and boards and things to be able to close off a chatzar. Now, and so I need more to close off a chatzar. Now, even though a chatzar is harder to close off, but if a chatzar becomes permissible with Aimid Meruba ala Paretz, then a mavi, which is easy to close off, for sure should be permissible with Eimid Mirabal Apartz. That's the Kal V'Chaim. Ma'achat Hashem Teres Balechi B'Kaira. Just where ma is like whereas for, or just as a courtyard. If there's an opening in the courtyard, I can't close that opening by just putting a crossbeam or just putting a post. I need to have a board of 4 tfachim, or I need to have 2 posts. There's other halachas that a mavi has a special leniency that you can just use a crossbeam or 1 lechi. Not like the Eruv, we have 2 posts and a string on top. A mavi has this lenient, you just need a post along the side, no string on top, nothing. A courtyard, though, would need 2 posts, more than a mavi. So, if a courtyard which needs 2 posts, nevertheless becomes permissible, Niteres by midmur parts becomes permissible if there's more wall than open area. It's mavi shnita b'lechi v'kaira. It's just b'lechi oikara. A mavi that's permissible, that becomes permissible to carry it with a post or a crossbeam. In a din shnita by midmur parts, is it not a kal v'chaimer that it should become permissible with Eimid Mirabal Apartz? That means that if the whole entranceway is only 7 tvachim, then it's for sure permissible. Okay, let's leave it.